Are you guys going to stand?
No.
I'm not.
Well, I'm doing whatever you're doing.
I think we should stand.
I would
Yes,
prefer to stand.
I would prefer to stand.
Really? Well,
Joe?
then you're this.
Joe and Jeff.
Are we voting on this?
But-
The only thing I would say is that, gentlemen, with the pulling the chairs out and pushing them back in each time, it's going to be a little distracting and also a little time consuming. I think they position these
That's
mics
fine.
for a
And I
purpose.
think the mics are all on.
Yes.
Okay.
Hot mic.
Testing. Yeah, Santa.
Are we ready, Jane?
I don't know, ask them if we're ready.
Are we ready?
Ask the sound booth, the
It's
TV booth.
6:30. Okay. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Butte County, welcome to our final candidate forum of this primary season. I am Margaret Swick, President of the League of Women Voters. We are enormously grateful to Chico State for partnering with us to host this forum. It is a pleasure to work with campus experts and a pleasure to be in Harlan Adams. To the university, the League says thank you. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. We work to encourage informed voting and civic engagement. We believe that it is an honor to serve in public office. We thank Mr. Cheadle, Mr. Gerlach, Mr. Montez, Mr. Oxley, and Mr. Reed for being willing to run for office, because we know it is arduous, and we thank them for being willing to serve. The League always welcomes new members. If you support civility in politics, support the in-depth examination of issues, support advocacy following consensus building, then the League is just right for you. And if you can work alongside a person of a completely different political persuasion, the League is right for you. You will find League information on the table outside this room. Thanks to our question screeners tonight, Mary Coda, Mark Coda, and Mahaley Allen. League members Chris Boyle, Claire Green, and Barb Evans are greeting and helping with questions. Our timekeepers are Janet Taylor and Sandy Boyd. Special thanks to Rose Kelly for her leadership organizing our forums. And finally, thanks to our moderators, past President Jane Wander and Nicole LaGrave. Please silence your cell phones. We ask that you hold all applause until the close of the forum. No portion of this forum can be recorded by anyone for campaign purposes. Our forums are issue-oriented, and we ask that there are no personal attacks, either in a question or in response to a question. And now Ms. Wander and Ms. LaGrave.
Thank you, Margaret. In addition, there should be no pictures taken by members of the audience or videos. The press is allowed to. We will have a video of this evening posted on the League of Women Voters of Butte County website, and I think it will also be available on Butte Community Access Television afterwards. Also, to let you know, one, the microphones are on all the time for all of us, or assume they are. Two, we are being broadcast tonight live over Butte County Community Access, which I believe is carried on Comcast. And tonight we're being given, I believe, all of Butte County, and we were supposed to go over into Nevada County. Right now, the Chico City Council is in session, and this TV station normally films their meetings. So while they are in session, we will only be broadcast to the other areas and not to the city of Chico. When the city council meeting ends, if it ends, while we are still in session, it's a big night too, Butte Community Access Television will immediately cut back to the doings here. So that's just a coincidence that they're having this big meeting tonight. Also, I want to introduce from the news media. We're going to be alternating questions from the audience, the League, and from the news media. Representing the Chico Enterprise Record is Dan Rydell. You could raise your hand, please, Dan. Representing the Chico News and Review is Howard Hardy. And from North State Public Radio is Mark Albert. And now I'm going to turn this part of the meeting over to my co-moderator, Nicole LaGrave.
Good evening, everyone. Our candidates tonight are running for the office of U.S. Congressional Representative. This is without limits starting in January. The annual salary since 2009 is $174,000. In addition, a member's representational allowance is made available to help members defray expenses resulting from their representational duties. Members are not allowed to use this allowance to pay any personal or political campaigning expenses. California Congressional District 1 is approximately 28,000 square miles, with less than 1% of it urban, the remainder rural. California's first congressional district is located in the northern portion of the state and includes the counties of Siskiyou, Modoc, Shasta, Lassen, Tehama, Butte, Plumas, Sierra, and Nevada, and parts of Glenn County. California's open primary for voter-nominated offices takes place on January 7th and includes June, thank you. You didn't miss it, don't worry. June 7th and includes the offices of U.S. Senate, U.S. House of Representatives, statewide offices, and state legislative offices. Any voter may vote for any one candidate in each contest, regardless of party preference. The top two candidates, regardless of party preference, who receive the most votes in each primary contest move on to the general election. After a top two primary, a general election must be held even if one candidate receives a majority of the vote, at least 50% plus one, and even if there is only one candidate in the primary election.
The California open primary system does not apply to candidates running for U.S. President, the County Central Committee, or for other local offices. So for these, anybody can go in and vote for any one of these candidates. But when you vote for the president in the primary, you have to be declared in one. You have to be declared to be in a party. And there's some other rules. If you're interested in figuring out if you can change parties, please go to the Butte County Registrar of Voters website. We don't have time to go into all those details tonight. With us this evening are 5 of the 7 on-ballot candidates. Mr. LaMalfa declined our invitation, and we were unable to make any contact with Mr. David Peterson. We tried numerous times through numerous methods. The candidates have drawn for order of opening and order of closing statements prior to this forum. Each candidate will be given a 2-minute opening statement time, 1 minute to answer each question, and 2 minutes for a closing statement. Each candidate will be asked each question. They will all answer the same question. If you would like to obtain a card on which to write one of your questions, if you haven't done that already, hold your hand up and one of our card takers will get a card to you. If you have a card filled out, please pass it to the end of the row you're sitting in, and the person on the end of the row hold up your hand so we can pick it up and bring it up to our card screeners. The reason we have card screeners is a lot of times all of you ask the same question, or the question has already been asked. So what these people will do is try to consolidate them into something similar and eliminate any difficulties of maybe things that we're not supposed to ask, and then they bring the questions up to us here at the dais. So without further ado, I'll start with Mr. Oxley for your opening statement, please. You have 2 minutes. Oh, before I say that, we have 2 people doing timing. One holds a stopwatch, the other holds some placards. They will give you notice when there is 1 minute left. I want to make sure all of you can see the timers here down in the front row. They will hold this up for a period of time at 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and a stop sign. What do you think?
Is that better?
Is that better? Yeah. Okay. We need to move the timers over there. I need to see them too. So I think all of you are familiar with timing for answering questions. So, okay, now we can begin. Mr. Oxley, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you for attending this evening. I was a graduate of Chico State in 1994. I have my bachelor's degree in nursing. I started my career at Enloe Hospital, and currently I work in the ER at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. Things that I learned in this wonderful profession are critical thinking skills and accurate assessments. Those are needed in Congress. Those two skills, especially when it comes to the affairs of internationalism. Our government in 1928 stated that internationalism would destroy nationalism. There are many issues confronting all of Americans today. Many of us feel that our constitutional rights are being threatened. I love this country, and I am a firm believer in keeping my oath of office. As a medic in the U.S. Army Reserves, I swore to preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution, and I will do so as a candidate. This may be out of order, but with the remaining of my time, I am going to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. If any would like to join me, they may. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Reed, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement. Thank you, Mr. Oxley.
Thank you. It's time for a change. We're not getting the type of representation we need in Washington, D.C. There's a group of congressional representatives in Washington who believe their purpose for being there is to gridlock the government and sometimes even try to shut it down. Unfortunately, our present representative is part of that group. The word compromise doesn't seem to be in their vocabulary. They seem to miss the point that our Constitution was a document of compromise, and for more than 200 years our government has functioned quite well using compromise. Let me give you an example of how this gridlock is really affecting our district. Siskiyou County is a county in the very north of our district. And at the very northern part, close to the Oregon border, there's a series of dams that engineers have looked at and determined that they need to come down or they need to be repaired or rebuilt at a very high cost, and the owner of those dams is not willing to do that. And there's competing interests like environmentalists, Indian tribes, farmers, who had different ideas of how this problem could be resolved, and finally, after a lot of effort, came to an agreement. But part of the action required federal action to make it happen, and our representative never let that come out of committee. And so he ignored these engineers, and the compromise expired. I'm a believer that infrastructure is what we need to do to bring our district up to the level of other parts of the state, especially with global warming. Infrastructure is so important, and our congressman doesn't believe in the science of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Cheadle.
It was Voltaire who said, "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities." Who are those that can make us commit atrocities? None other than moneyed politicians. We fell for the lie that banks were too big to fail. In reality, they were too big to bail, leading to a loss of $5 trillion in the markets, thereby increasing the Wall Street industrial complex. We fell for the war on terror and allowed the NSA carte blanche to spy on American citizens without cause, also leading to an increase in the military-industrial complex. We fell for the war on drugs, leading to mass incarceration, which is the bedrock of the problems that we suffer in our communities today, because oftentimes with over 70 million people with a criminal record, they can't get jobs, they can't get housing, they can't get federal assistance. We fell for and are falling for the lies that mandatory vaccines are safe and effective, thereby funneling money into the pharmaceutical industrial complex. I'm Gregory Cheadle, and I will work to get money out of politics, and I will strive to get government back into the hands of we the people.
Thank you, Mr. Cheadle. Mr. Montez.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters, members of the press, and all of you for being here. I'm the son of a poor family, one of 7 children, 6 boys, 1 girl. I am the first in my family to graduate from high school, and I went on to college where I paid my own way. It took me 16 years because I worked 60, 70, and sometimes 80 hours a week to honor my commitments and pay for my own education. During that 16 years, I also served in the military like my father before us. I served with my 5 brothers, so we are veterans, and we're proud of that. I went on to graduate from Cal State Sacramento with a 3.94 GPA, which got me into UCLA Law School, one of the best law schools in the nation. When I graduated from law school in 1993, I began my career as a prosecutor. I'm a law and order kind of guy. About 8 years after being an attorney, I was appointed to a judge position, and then a few years later, as a managing judge, managing between 35 and 50 judges, depending on our workload. I'm very involved in my community here. I am one of the founding members and the judge of the Chico Youth Court. I am the founding board member for Stairways Programming, which many of you know, and I'm also on the board of the DCBA. I'm running for Congress because I believe that DC is broken and that there is nobody looking out for us anymore. And I believe that the career politicians have put us in this state and have failed to lead us out. I have answers, I have solutions, which I hope you will hear about tonight to bring jobs and also how I would approach the writing of laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montez. Mr. Gerlach.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, press, for having us all here. Thank you all the other candidates. You'll see 5 of us here. There's actually 7 of us on the ballot. 4 of us are Republicans, 2 of us are Democrats. I'm the one that's no party preference. I declined to state. I always have. I've never joined a political party. I never intend to. I'm in this race because I think the 2-party system is broken and that we need to have other options. I'm hoping that by being in that place where I'm not beholden to either party or their money, that I'll be able to go to Washington and represent the people that voted for me, because they're the only people that I owe. By trade, I'm an internet technology engineer. I've spent the last 20 years building the internet in Silicon Valley. A number of years ago, I moved up here and got interested in politics because of what I saw Washington doing to our privacy, and the way that Snowden said or revealed about bulk data collection, and then everything up to like recently how the FBI went after Apple to crack the iPhone. I think these assaults on our privacy and on our technology are going to ruin the business in Silicon Valley. Microsoft, Cisco, the big manufacturers that sell worldwide are all saying they're losing revenue. That's the engine that runs California's economy. If we ruin that technical dominance by letting Washington do what they're doing, it'll start to really affect how we live here. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gerlach. Before we go on, I'd like to let the audience and the candidates know we have about an hour and 15 minutes more for the questions before your closing answers. And I want to let the audience know if you put a question in and we don't get to it, our apologies. We're going to try to incorporate most everything into similar questions, but if we miss you, I want to let you know ahead of time we're under a time constraint. We're going to try to answer one question from the audience or from the league and then send one over to the press. So we'll alternate with the press since we have 3 people here. So for our first question,
You'll each have 1 minute as a reminder to answer this question, and we'll start with Mr. Oxley. This question is regarding the national political climate. The political climate in Washington, D.C. has been extremely partisan in recent years. In that kind of atmosphere, what would you do to get things done while in office?
I first have to disagree. I think that they actually are working quite well together, the Democrats and the Republicans. On October 2nd, 2013, Congress passed and the President signed the Organization of American States Revitalization and Reform Act of 2013. This act supports congressional support for 4 treaties. When you read those treaties, you can look at them and you can see that they are starkly different from what is found in the Constitution. It also includes the Inter-American Human Rights System. So I think that Congress is actually working quite well together. Unfortunately for us, they don't let us know what bills they pass. It is important that you understand that the international affairs in the world are very significant in our politics today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reed?
So I would have to disagree with Mr. Oxley and agree with whoever asked the question. The polarization in Washington, D.C. has brought on the very gridlock I was talking about in my opening statement. It turns out Republicans and Democrats in Congress don't even talk to each other. And I'd like you to look at my website, which is jimreed2016.com, where I discuss this very subject. And one thing I'm committed to is in the first 100 days of office, trying to meet with every single representative in the House, both Republicans and Democrats, for the purpose of trying to find common ground and also just to develop a relationship so that later we can get something done.
What I would do is what I do now. I reach out to everyone. I don't limit myself to Republicans or to Democrats or Libertarians. I reach to everyone. As proof of that, give you an example, I reached out to the Democrat Party students here at Cal State Chico and was told to get lost 3 times. That's not my problem about reaching out. That's someone else's. I'm more than willing to reach out. I practice that. Another problem that we have, too, is transparency. I think there's a lot of gridlock because there's a lack of transparency and we don't get the truth about what's coming on with a given bill. They're so large, they're voluminous bills, and my time's up. Can't see you. Oh, 30. Okay, anyway, transparency. One of the things that I would promote is that when we have a bill, there should be a maximum of 50 pages per day that we get to look at that bill prior to it being passed. And that's, for instance, if we had Obamacare with that same thing, we would have seen what was in Obamacare and it would not have been a surprise. Same thing with cap and trade and other bills. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Montez?
I believe there is a wind of change blowing through the country which is going to wipe out many of those 435 positions held by the U.S. House of Representatives, and therein lies an opportunity to coalition build with those who are operating under the same mandate as all of us up here, answering to people just like you. Also, I have experience. You can look to this community and see that I am a coalition builder. I have reached across the aisle, for example, to work with Tammy Ritter, someone who is a liberal city councilwoman, and together with other people, we have built the Chico Youth Court because I choose to find the things that unite us rather than the things that divide us. And I think that common ground is what we should be looking for because we cannot afford to exclude half of the brain trust in solving the significant problems that we have before us in this nation today.
Thank you. Mr. Gerlach?
I think I have a unique perspective in this since I'm not representing any political party here. I have to agree that the acrimony between the two parties has become like a family feud. It can be senseless at times and then totally unproductive. A lot of people want gridlock and it works for them like this. I think that if I was able to go to Washington, I would be able to meet in the middle on ideas, working towards solutions. There's caucuses from either party. As an independent, I'm not going to be obligated to go to one, but I won't be shut out of one either. At that point, I'll be able to discern on my own for the voters of the 1st District what our options are, and make the best decision or bring the facts back and ask people and get feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Gerlach. Now we're going to start with a question from the press. Could we have Mr. Albert from North State Public Radio, please?
Sure. We'll start with something very easy. With the presidential campaign sort of reaching high gear, which of those candidates do you intend to support in November? I think that might give the people a little bit of an understanding of where you are.
For me, that's actually quite...
We're going to go in a little bit different order.
Very good.
We start this time on the second question with the person in position 5, who would be Mr. Gerlach.
Oh.
And then we'll do candidates 1, 2, 3, 4. Each time we start the question with the next one down the line. Okay? So Mr. Gerlach?
Yeah. Who would you support in the presidential campaign?
Oh,
among the remaining candidates.
Well, in November, I don't know, because I can't tell you who's going to be there at this point. In June, as a no-party preference, I'm going to ask for a Democratic ballot, and I'm going to vote for Bernie Sanders. If he makes it to November, then I would vote for him again. If he doesn't, I'll have to see what the options are at that point. But between either Hillary or Trump, I don't think I could vote for either. A choice of the lesser evil is still a choice of evil. And I'm hoping that Bernie gets in there, because I'm almost anti-establishment like he is in a lot of ways.
Candidates, you are welcome to ask to have a question repeated if enough time has passed that you forgot what the question was. Let's have the answer now from Mr. Oxley.
For me, the choice is quite easy. As I explained in the last question, that bill, the Organization of American States Revitalization and Reform Act, that bill was co-sponsored by Marco Rubio. It passed the Senate by unanimous consent, including Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton supports that bill, and Doug LaMoffa voted for it, as well as 382 other members of the House. So for me, when you read those bills, when you read those treaties, you can understand my concern that these gentlemen have violated their oath of office. For me right now, I'm looking to lean towards Mr. Trump. I have concerns about Mr. Trump, as most of you do. But right now, I know that he did not pass any legislation that threatens our Constitution or our national sovereignty. And I encourage you to please read that act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oxley. Mr. Reed.
So I'm the only Democrat up here of the 5 of us today. The Democratic Party has a wonderful situation with 2 outstanding candidates running for president. Whichever wins the nomination, I will certainly support in November. You may not know this, but I ran, actually 3 of us ran for Congress 4 years ago. I made it to the November election and did not win. Got over 125,000 votes, and people ask, well, why do you expect there to be a different result 4 years later? Well, a lot of it is the presidential race drives turnout. And 125,000 votes 4 years ago actually was impressive. It would have been enough votes to win in most congressional districts. I believe that because of the mix of candidates, and particularly if Mr. Trump is the candidate, that will affect turnout that will allow me to win the election.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Cheadle.
You said this was going to be an easy question. For me, it's a difficult question. Mrs. Clinton has a terrible record on race. Mr. Sanders hits the problem, bullseye. But his solution makes what we have even worse. Mr. Cruz frightens me because of he's just too rigid. And Mr. Trump scares me because at this point he acts like a king or an emperor rather than a presidential candidate. And so I would not be surprised if I voted Libertarian.
Thank you, Mr. Cheadle. Mr. Montez.
Well, apparently my colleagues haven't heard that Ted Cruz withdrew from the GOP tonight. So there is only really one functional choice, and that is Donald Trump. I believe, as I've always said, that we need to get behind our nominee in the Republican Party, and I will do just that. In truth, I found things that I liked about Mr. Cruz and Mr. Trump, and I also found things that I didn't like so much about either of them. But we finally have an opportunity to get behind one candidate. We need to do that, and Mr. Trump does have experience also working with Democrats, which I think is going to be, as I said earlier, a necessary component to moving this country forward through our major problems.
Thank you, Mr. Montez. Now I have a question that comes from the League of Women Voters, and we will start this time with Mr. Montez and then go on down and around. This question is on the environment and natural resources. What, if any, federal legislation or regulation pertinent to California water use and its susceptibility to droughts would you support?
Well, I would support not sending any of our water south. I think it is a mistake for bills like H.R. 5781, which attempted to do that unsuccessfully. I think we also need to support Proposition 1, the water bond. There is $2.7 billion set aside for water storage, and I think we need water storage. It's pretty evident that we need that, and if at least we're not going to get sites, they should be honest with us, and they should begin to look at other options like raising the height of the dams or looking for alternative sites. Lastly, I would support working against the United States Forest Service to clear out a lot of the underbrush and thin out some of the trees, not a lot, to allow more of the water to be absorbed into our aquifers, which we badly need, and also for more water to run downstream into our rivers and lakes below.
Thank you. Mr. Gerlach.
Water storage in California is lagging behind the need. There hasn't been new storage built in California since the 1970s. It's hard to do that with the federal regulations that are in place. The costs of the environmental studies and the bureaucracy in between is making it really difficult to move forward on storage. But we have to, somewhere, somehow. There's got to be something that we can do. There's a lot of proposals out there, and most of them are being turned down because of this arduous bureaucracy in the way. I think we need to allow some either exceptions or change the bureaucracy in order to be able to do that. The forest needs to be managed better. There's a lot of blight and beetle kill that's out there that we need to clear out and make the fire dangers less, as well as the ability to collect water into the aquifers.
Mr. Gerlach, thank you. Mr. Oxley.
Our forefathers, our ancestors who built the dams that we have today, had the foresight to see that they needed to store water. We need to follow their example and build more dams. I know there are a lot of environmental impact that can occur because of that, but we need the water. And I don't see any other source other than build more dams so that we can collect as much water as we can. This last drought, if it did not scare many of you, it scared me. And we started collecting water just in the event that there was none. We have to take an aggressive stance on the water issue, and I think we need to make that a priority, and I think California has many opportunities to build many dams in the future for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
So a lot of people don't know this, but Shasta Lake and then the Sacramento River down into the bay is jointly controlled by the state of California and the federal government. The federal government built the Shasta Dam, paid for the Shasta Dam, and that's why they have a great deal of control. And the Endangered Species Act, legislation by a Republican, as a matter of fact, is the main law, federal law, that prevents a lot of our water from going south like it would otherwise. And this is an act that is under attack, and we must protect it. Now, again, my most important issue is bringing infrastructure to our district. And that not only means roads and bridges, but it means strengthening the levees, and it means additional water storage. I support the Sites Reservoir, but that's not the only way we need to address the drought. We need work with conservation, we need recycling, and we need other sources of water like desalination. Thank you.
Mr. Cheadle, thank you, Mr. Reed.
You know, we have a balancing act to do with respect to water in California. We really have to ask the question, what do we want California to be? California, parts of it are desert, and we want to build mansions and have green grass. It's unnatural. That's one thing. The other thing is that the overwhelming majority of water goes to agriculture, and approximately half of the products grown in California are exported. So those are things that we have to wrestle with. With respect to legislation, I would support, like Mr. Reed, I would support desalination plants. In addition to that, I would support conservation. But ultimately, we have to ask the question, does every part of California have to look like a suburb? We must deal with growth. Right now, we have nearly 40 million people in this state, and again, this state is not just drenching with water all the time. So those are issues that we have to confront as far as what we want California to be ultimately.
Thank you, Mr. Cheadle.
We'll take a question now from Mr. Hardy from the Chico News and Review, and we'll start the answers with Mr. Cheadle.
Thank you. Candidates, will you fight for women's reproductive rights? Specifically, would you vote to defund Planned Parenthood?
I think you have to understand that government is too invasive. Government has no business doing a lot of things that we've given government the power over. I personally have a problem with Planned Parenthood in that its history involves eugenics, wanting to get rid of me, to get rid of my race. So there's no way in the world that I could sit here and condone what Planned Parenthood is and its history.
Thank you. Mr. Montez.
I am a conservative, and I am a pro-life advocate. I would not fund Planned Parenthood. In fact, I would work against the funding of Planned Parenthood. I can't take away anybody's right to have an abortion. That is something guaranteed by the Supreme Court in Roe versus Wade. But it's unconscionable for someone like me. My wife and I were never able to have children, much as we wanted to, that babies are lost in that way. So I would not fund Planned Parenthood, and I would do everything in my power, in fact, to defund it. And I just want to be honest with people.
Thank you. Mr. Gerlach.
Currently, I think Planned Parenthood is funded with federal monies, and abortions are restricted, with that money. So none of that money can be spent on actual abortions, but the rest of women's health it is able to fund. So at that point, I would never consider cutting off funding for Planned Parenthood. And the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, and taking monies from the Affordable Care Act away for abortions is something I wouldn't want to do either. I think a woman's right to choose is up to the woman. I'm not a woman, so I can't say I fully understand that, other than that the government shouldn't be telling us what to do with our bodies, whether we're a man or a woman.
Thank you, Mr. Gerlach. Mr. Oxley?
I think the issue for me revolves around rights versus responsibilities. When people engage in sexual activity, that primary act is to create a baby. So every time people engage in sexual activity, that's the outcome, unless something is done to prevent it. So to exchange responsibility for the rights to go ahead and have an abortion, I don't agree with. So I would fund Planned Parenthood if they were to promote education for abstinence and taking responsibility for our actions. Because to me, that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oxley. Mr. Reed?
I absolutely support a woman's right to choose. Planned Parenthood has endorsed my candidacy twice before, and I expect them to endorse me again for this candidacy. It's the biggest fraud when people start talking about defunding Planned Parenthood. As Mr. Gerlach indicated, there is no federal money going to Planned Parenthood for abortions. But Planned Parenthood does so much good for women's health, particularly people who are not wealthy. And to defund Planned Parenthood means making an attempt to destroy women's health.
Thank you. This next question is on a related topic. It's healthcare more generally, and we'll be starting with Mr. Reed. What role should the federal government have regarding healthcare for its citizens?
Well, first of all, I supported Obamacare, I still do, but it doesn't go far enough. And I think all the good things that it does, most people would agree are good things. What most people have a problem with is the way it's funded. I personally believe that Medicare is a great system and it should apply to all people. Some people call that universal health care, some people call it single payer. But I believe its time has come. Obamacare was a step forward. Medicare for everybody is the next step. And you'll hear a lot of Democrats who will support single payer, but guess what? All those people, all those employers who are complaining about how expensive Obamacare is, how difficult it is under the law to cover all their employees, I think they'll come around because Medicare for everybody won't be funded by employers other than through the FICA that's taken out of people's paycheck and matched by employees.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Cheadle.
I would like government to stay the heck out of my health. Whenever government gets involved in virtually anything, it becomes woefully expensive and woefully ineffective and inefficient. The role that government should play more than any, if there is one to play, would be that of prevention and personal responsibility. Obamacare was sold with a bunch of lies. What we have right now is legislation that has trampled on our constitutional right. The individual mandate tramples on our constitutional right. If we give government the right to tell us what we must have, where does it end? It won't end. Allowing government and just praying that government will take over, all we have to do is look at history. There's not a single benevolent government on the planet, and to allow government that much more responsibility is a mess.
Thank you. Mr. Montez?
Yes, just a quick comment on Planned Parenthood. For those of us that are more familiar with the issue, they do put all the dollars into one bucket, and although some of that is ascribed towards contraceptives, there's no way to distinguish once the dollars are in the same bucket. And my personal feeling, which is, again, as a pro-lifer, is that if we don't fund that, then Planned Parenthood will have to use those funds to be applied towards contraceptions, and there are fewer abortions. To answer the question just stated, I do not believe that the federal government has any role in our health care. I don't think the state government should have much of a role in our health care. I think what we should be doing is working with private sector, but we need to provide funds. There will be $400 billion raised by the federal government this year in taxes, penalties, and new assessments. Let's have some of that stay here in each state and work through a program which makes sense to be run from a local level and maybe start funding county hospitals again.
Thank you. Mr. Gerlach.
I think that the entities that should be out of healthcare are the insurance companies. I think the ACA or Obamacare was a giveaway to the insurance companies. Kaiser, in the first year of Obamacare, said that their profits were up 50%. A number of insurance companies said the same thing. I know my medical bills went up 50% in that time frame. Some way to get the insurance companies out of it. If it is the government that then processes those payments to the doctors need to be paid. Medical devices, medical care should be an open market. There has to be some way to pay them without the profit motive of the insurance companies in between us and our doctors.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Oxley.
I don't know of anyone in Congress that has read the Affordable Health Care Act because of how long it is. I have started to read that, and I can tell you that in my assessment of that act, the government is collecting data and doing assessments. Everywhere you read through that, it's assessment and data collection. I personally feel that the government is too involved in our health care, and I'm going to explain to you why. In our nursing assessment right now, we are asking very invasive questions that have nothing to do with why you come to the ER. They want to know if you have any unlocked guns. They want to know if you wear a helmet, wear a seatbelt. They want to know if you have a CO2 detector in your home. They want to know how old you were when you first started having sex, how many lifetime partners you have. We need to understand the Affordable Health Care Act, and to my knowledge, no one has read that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll take a question from the press, from the Enterprise Record. Mr. Rydell.
Yes. So it has been decades since an incumbent lost in this district. Why do you think this will be any different?
Mr. Oxley, we'll start with you.
On Mr. Lamoffa's sign, he says that he's one of us. Well, I can tell you that if you read that act that I told you about and read the treaties, the Charter of the Organization of American States, the Inter-American Democratic Charter, the American Declaration of the Rights and Duties of Men, and the American Convention on Human Rights with the jurisdiction of the Human Rights Court. If you read those things, you will understand why Mr. Lamoffa should not be your congressman again. I spoke to him personally in regards to that, and he called that piece of legislation trifle. I asked him if he read this 4-page bill, and he said no. I said, did you read the content of those treaties? And he said no. In my opinion, no one should pass a law if you don't read it, and you will have my promise that there will not be one law that is passed that I do not read. Thank you.
Mr. Reed.
So yeah, I would agree with Mr. Oxley in that our present representative just doesn't seem to have the energy to get anything done, and we need to replace him quickly. Polling shows that he's not only unpopular with Democrats and people who have no party preference, but he's not doing well with Republicans as well. More conservative Republicans, he's right around a 50% approval rating, but the average Republican has him at about 35%. As I indicated earlier, I think the presidential race is what's going to drive the turnout, and I believe that the turnout is going to be different than it's been in the last 10 years because of the candidates we have running for president. Furthermore, the Senate race appears to be, which would be the second most interesting race normally, appears to be a race between two Democrats in November. So again, I think turnout will be much different than it's been in the past.
Mr. Cheeto.
I think what's going to make things different this time is that people have become increasingly fed up. The good old boy network is on life support. Bernie Sanders and Mr. Paul have energized the young people. The young people are not the least bit interested in the good old boy network. They want a future. They want a bright future. This will be the first generation that will have less or is on track to have less than their parents. This generation, they graduate from college and they come and live at home. They're not satisfied with that, and needless to say, nor are their parents. And so this time around, again, the young people in any movement that has had substantial impact, it was the young people that started it. And here we have, in this area, we have young people who are fired up and who are not going to take this stuff any longer.
Thank you, Mr. Cheadle. Now, Mr. Montez.
I think quite simply that we have an opportunity to beat the incumbent because he has failed miserably at his job. He has not brought any jobs to this community, and a congressman needs to be active in doing just that. He has voted for billions of dollars in corporate welfare at a time when we cannot afford anything like that. As I mentioned earlier, he's voted to transfer, he's co-sponsored a bill to transfer more of our water south, and that's a desperate situation, folks. He also took a position on granting President Obama trade promotion authority, which ultimately led to the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, perhaps one of the worst trade deals in American history, which bodes very evil for this country if in fact it gets past this Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Montez. Mr. Gerlach.
I have to agree with Joe on almost everything he said right there, as far as talking about LaMalfa. Being a no-party preference candidate, I think that if I make it past June, I have the best chance of anybody on this board of beating LaMalfa. If you go to the registration in the district, it's 42% Republican, 58% other, and only 29%, half of those are registered Democrats. As a no-party preference, if I could gather the no-party preference, those people that have left the parties, and the Democratic vote against a Republican incumbent or a Republican challenger in this district, I think that's the only way to get somebody besides a Republican elected to District 1.
Thank you. Before I go on, I might mention that with the top two primary process, it's possible to have two people from the same party running in the general election. Just information. Now a question on national security. And this time we'll be starting with Mr. Gerlach. What, if anything, does the U.S. need to do in order to address national security and terrorism? Please explain your answer in detail.
How much time do I have?
Yeah, in 1 minute.
1 minute. I think we need to do a better job of policing or understanding who we're trying to stop. What I see from a technology standpoint is bulk data collection. They're creating a giant haystack looking for needles. When there's anything that happens and they want to figure out why, they can look at, well, this is a very big question to answer in just 30 seconds. National security is big. I'm afraid that if they continue to crack open our privacy, it doesn't stop any terrorists. How do you stop the terrorists? We need to know and look and see where they are and go after them individually or in their small groups, not after all of us.
Thank you. Mr. Oxley, in 1 minute, in detail. Thank you.
National security has to be our priority. You need to understand that our priority is your safety. If you do not know that I have your best interest and security at heart, then do not vote for me. We have 195 bases. There's 195 countries around the world. We have our bases in over 150 of those. We really need to look and assess where it is and why our bases are around the world in the manner in which they are. I think we can do a better job here at home, tightening up our borders for one, and then we need to do a better job of screening and vetting people before they come into this country. Our ancestors did it 100 years ago, and they did it for the safety of the American people, and we need to do it again today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
From an international standpoint, the main thing we can do for national security is stay out of other people's civil wars. That's exactly what the Iraq War is, that's what the Syrian War is, that's what the other Middle East wars are. It's two groups fighting with each other, and we should not be trying to get between them. By doing that, we just encourage the recruitment of terrorists, and that's something that we should not be doing. Now at home, I think we're doing about the right thing. I think the emphasis has to be more on intelligence. Donald Trump's thought of banning any Muslims coming into the country is just a crazy idea, because if we need to improve our intelligence, the Muslim community is where we're going to get some of the most important. By antagonizing that group, it just makes life in the nation more dangerous.
Thank you, Mr. Cheadle.
You know, could you give me that question one more time? I just want to make certain I didn't miss something.
I want you to repeat the question.
They asked it.
Oh,
You want me to repeat it?
please.
What, if anything, does the U.S. need to do in order to address national security and terrorism? Please explain your answer in detail.
Well, it's interesting that we talk about terrorism. I mean, black folk were terrorized years ago, and it wasn't a terrorist issue. But now, all of a sudden, it's a terrorist issue when we have just a few people killed. We killed more people in a week in this country than terrorists have ever done. So this fear thing that government is all about, and Mr. Gerlach hit on it pretty well, and so did Mr. Oxley. Government is doing nothing more than instilling fear in us so they can take more power and control over us. But short of that, we do need to vet those who come into our country. We have to understand that we are not the world's police. And I guess most importantly, we have to make certain that those people who come into our country are legitimate people. They've been vetted. We know who they are. We know where they come from and things like that. That would be key as far as people coming into our country. With respect to going out of our country, like Mr. Reed said, we don't need to be in someone else's business. We need to make certain that when...
That's all. We do allow the candidate to finish a sentence if they're mid-sentence when the stop sign goes up.
I don't want to abuse my privilege.
Mr. Montez?
I think that we do need to secure our borders. I think that we should not be allowing anyone in this country that's not fully vetted. This has nothing for me to do with any race or religion. It's simply a safety issue. Nobody leaves their front door open for anybody in the neighborhood to come in. We shouldn't be inviting people in without knowing who they are. This is our home. Also, we do need to beef up human intelligence gathering, so maybe we can avoid these things by understanding what's going on in other parts of the world. And as a veteran, I don't want to use our military. I do want to make our military stronger so that our men and women can survive any battles we choose to send them into, but I really don't want to send them into battles unless they're absolutely necessary. And I would not use that power lightly. I just want to make sure that we appear strong enough so that nobody comes over and tries to harm us.
Thank you, Mr. Montez.
We'll take a question now from Mr. Albert from North State Public Radio.
Okay. Candidates, I know that, well, there's been a lengthy movement and feelings around this part of California that we're not properly represented. I know that, Mr. Montez, you've endorsed the state of Jefferson as a concept. And I'm wondering, aside from delivering 2 additional U.S. Senate seats to the Republican Party, what exactly a state of Jefferson would accomplish?
And Mr. Montez, you're starting.
I do embrace the concept of the state of Jefferson, because in any form of representative government, the people must have a voice, and the government must be willing to hear the voice of its people. In Northern California, we have neither of those 2 things. So it's not just the state of Jefferson. It's the fight that every one of us has for freedom and liberty that we should be fighting. They happen to be the only ones that are fighting this battle on any significant scale. I don't like the notion of tearing this state in half, and I hope it never even comes to that. This is the state of my birth. I don't look forward to anything like that. But we cannot allow Southern California to take all of our resources and view us as nothing more than a resource for them to take whenever they want and however they choose.
Thank you. Mr. Gerlach.
I've had long discussions with people about the state of Jefferson, trying to figure out what they're doing. In concept, it's a great idea. In practice or in their execution, they're failing miserably. I think the process includes having the state legislature approve it, so we have to go to the rest of the state and convince them to let us go, if that were to be the case. And then at that point, it comes to Washington, and then the Congress has to decide whether they'll allow another state into the Union. If we get to that point, and I'm the congressman, then I would absolutely endorse it if I was there. But the execution right now, like I said, is terrible. Their branding is terrible. Their logo is terrible. Their messaging is terrible. To get the other 90% of the state to be able to agree with us and have them give this to us, I think is a long shot and a pipe dream at this point.
Mr. Oxley.
I understand the frustration of the people up here in the North State in relationship to representation. I've spoke to Terry Raposa about this, and we disagree on this fundamental issue that I'll share with you now. And that is that the international repercussions that will happen to the new state of Jefferson will affect the rest of the Union as well. If you don't understand internationally the laws that are affecting the new state of Jefferson, the hope of having more independence and freedom is not going to be there. So it has to come back to education. I understand the frustration of the people, but we need to be educated as to what's really affecting our nation. And I can tell you that through the treaties that we've signed off on through Congress, it's going to affect the new state of Jefferson just as much as the rest of California and the nation. Thank you.
Mr. Reed.
There is one benefit of dividing the state of California. The Senate, we have 2 representatives in the state of the Senate, but yet we have more than 10% of the population. Our population is not represented in Washington, D.C. because of that. And dividing the state into several parts would give us that many more senators and that better representation. But Mr. Gerlach is right. In order to do this, it would take a 2/3 vote of our legislature in the state and then a 2/3 vote of Congress. Our state is generally controlled by Democrats. So if we were going to divide the state, we've got to do it in such a way that appeals to Democrats. What happened is the state of Jefferson group, who are very right-wing, actually almost anarchist, have taken over as more of a political statement, something that maybe was politically beneficial for certain candidates. But because they went so extreme, it's made the possibility of dividing the state an impossibility. I can't see it happening in another 20 years at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Cheadle.
California is too big to govern. You know, again, we have 40 million people, or nearly 40 million people in this state. Jerry Brown is the president of California, not the governor. California needs to be split. I would like to see it split in at least 5, because every part is different. Redding is different than LA. Wairika is different than Bakersfield. Mojave and Blythe and all those, they're all different. And so it behooves us to make the state such that it is governable, so that those people in different areas, in the diverse areas, will not only be represented, but that their needs will be met more effectively.
Thank you. This next question is from the audience. It's regarding immigration, and we'll be starting with Mr. Cheadle. How should the U.S. immigration policies be changed, if at all?
Well, you know, we have enough laws in the books. It just needs to be enforced. That's one thing. We also have to revisit the 14th Amendment with respect to anchor babies. That piece of the Constitution has been abused so much. We have people flying in, having their babies, and getting the benefits that that child has as a United States citizen. That's something that needs to be addressed. If we address that, that would save us tons of money in health care alone. Again, we have to vet those people that come into our country. We have to make certain also that those people who are residing in our country illegally cannot gain access to federal benefits. That would stop a lot of this stuff coming in. But ironically, it may be the other way around, because America is sending jobs to Mexico. Ford just opened a plant there. GM, that we bailed out, is opening a plant there. So it'll be interesting, because Mexico may keep us from coming in there. So
Thank you. Mr. Montez.
I think that we should return to the Bracero program. I don't know why we got rid of that program, but it used to allow individuals and families to come here and work in the harvest, pay their taxes, return to their own countries wherever they were, be reunited with their families, and have enough money to sustain them until the next harvest. When we did away with that program, what happened is there was uncertainty. These folks didn't know if they would be invited back. So they came across the border and they stayed. But now, working in seasonal work was no longer able to sustain them on a full-time basis, and so they began to look in other trades, other jobs, taking those jobs from Americans. But also, they wanted their families here with them, which makes sense. So a return to the Bracero program would help not only our agricultural community, but I think relations between the nations as well.
Thank you. Mr. Gerlach.
I certainly don't think a wall is worth the effort or the money for what it would accomplish. The normalization of those that have been coming here for decades to work and then have been kept out of the system, I think is essential to whatever the solution is going to be. The people that have been here that aren't citizens, we need to get them tax numbers. We need to, collect taxes from them, make them part of our system, make them part of our healthcare system, make them, actually bring them in. And I think if we do normalize them, the voting has to take a long time, because if they were to instantly become voters, I think that would harm our political system. So somewhere there has to be a compromise in between what we do to normalize them and then what the path to citizenship would be.
Thank you. Mr. Oxley?
It's very important to look at our history. We have always been a country welcoming other people into this country. My relatives come from Denmark and from England. We have to remember what becoming an American citizen is. That's becoming fully vetted as an American and nothing else, nothing less than being an American citizen, obeying our laws and becoming a productive member of our society. If you go back in 1928 to the Citizenship Training Manual that our government put out, it talked about all the different things that a new member of our society would be responsible for, and they're the same things that we have to do. We need to work, we need to pay our taxes, and we need to become excellent citizens. Thank you.
Mr. Reed.
I believe there's three different parts of the immigration law that needs to change. First of all, we need to expand people who have a profession that we need. We need to expand the ability of those people to come into the United States. We've ignored our education system, we haven't funded it properly, and we have a shortage of professionals, doctors, engineers, etc., scientists. And even when we had double-digit inflation, there were jobs going unfulfilled because we didn't have anybody qualified. So we need to expand the group that's allowed to come in. Secondly, most people who enter the country undocumented or become undocumented don't enter it illegally. They come in on legal visas and then overstay their visit. That needs to be addressed, and a computer system could easily track them. The final thing is the 11 million people who are already here, who have established roots, who are hardworking. If they've committed crimes, they may have to be, if they're serious, they may have to be deported. But everybody else should be allowed to stay and pay a small fine for the fact that they came in illegally.
Thank you.
Now we'll go for a question from the press, from the Chico News and Review. Mr. Hardy?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Candidates, do you acknowledge humanity's role in climate change, and how will you decrease our dependence on fossil fuels?
We'll start with Mr. Reed.
So, as an engineer, I graduated from Berkeley in electrical engineering many years ago. I absolutely believe the science of climate change, and it's not a matter of whether it's happening anymore, it's a matter of what we should do now to solve the problem. Mr. LaMalfa denies the science of climate change. How do you solve a problem if you don't even believe there is a problem? Obviously, carbon is a big issue. We need to address it with a carbon tax, or alternately with the system we have in California, cap and trade. If the temperature rises another 1.5 degrees, it's going to be cataclysmic, and we cannot let that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Cheadle.
You know, climate change has been around for a little bit. And it was, you know, first it was going to be too hot, then it's going to be too cold. These guys have told us the world's going to come to an end years ago. That's one thing. That's not to say that there is not a climate change. The problem that I have with climate change is that government is not the entity that's going to make a difference in climate change. Climate change is designed for one thing only. That is to take money from us and take control of us as well. All the regulations and so forth and so on that are proposed are like taking an ice cube and throwing it in the Pacific and expecting the Pacific to get cooler. Again, with those in control in government, Obama, if he's such a staunch believer in climate change, why does he fly to LA in a 747 and his wife come in a half hour later to LAX on a 757? Al Gore, a condo in San Francisco, a mansion in Nashville. These are the people who want to make me feel guilty because I don't drive a Prius? I don't think so. So again, climate change is all about power, control, and taking our money.
Thank you, Mr. Cheadle. Mr. Montez.
Is global climate change a reality? Yes. Is it significant? Yes. Do humans have a part to play in that? Yes. You can't look at places like Beijing or LA and realize that that's the truth. So how much, though, do humans have a part to play? That's the big question that nobody really knows. You can look at the geologic record and find examples of global warming in our past, in the fossil record, the sedimentary record, and also in the ice records from Greenland. These things have existed before. But I do think that we have an influence on things, and I think we should strive to make our environment better. I think we need to do it with a little more rationale and reason and not so anti-business in the doing, because if we have more resources from more jobs, we can bring more solutions to this and every other problem.
Thank you, Mr. Montez. Mr. Gerlach.
Climate change is a loaded topic. Whenever I see that term, climate change, in the media, in print or on TV, I exchange the word pollution. And think about it. When you say that climate change is causing the sea levels to rise, the truth is pollution is causing the sea levels to rise. When you say 97% of scientists believe in climate change, I could question that, but if you put in pollution, 97% of scientists believe in pollution, I think that's pretty easy to imagine that that's the case. Cap and trade isn't the answer. We're collecting $2 billion a year in cap and trade taxes here in California. We're spending about 15 to 20% of it on electric cars, and the rest of it just goes into the general fund and does nothing to stop the pollution. So please remember that little trick whenever you're in the media.
Thank you. Mr. Oxley.
Just to be very clear, the influence of internationalism is real. This is an issue where we need to work together on an international basis, because what happens here in America affects what happens over in China and vice versa. It's about resources and where we allocate those resources. What is Congress going to appropriate to spend money on to fix? If we can spend enough money to send a rover to Mars, collect data, and bring it back to us, then we can use those type of resources with the educational level of these men and women to come up with ways to help us in America fix the pollution problems and create an environment that will equalize this global trending. So I think that we can do it and work together internationally, but it's about where we want to allocate our resources. Thank you.
Thank you. I just looked at my watch. We're not quite there yet, but I want to let you know what the plan is. We'll have one more question from the audience. We'll end with a question from the Enterprise Record. After he's done, we'll then start our closing statements of 2 minutes each. So a question from here, question from there, and then we'll go to closing, if that's okay with everybody. This question is from the audience. It's on higher education. With Chico State and Butte College being the primary institutions of higher education in the North State, how would you plan to support them when you're in Congress? And we will start with Mr. Oxley.
Can you repeat that question, please?
When you go to Congress, how would you plan as a congressman to support our institutions of higher education in the North State, Chico State and Butte College?
Well, education is paramount. If you're asking whether or not we need to provide free education, no, I do not believe that free education is the answer. Can we provide opportunities for people to obtain those resources, get a job, and pay back those resources? Yes. Education is paramount. If it wasn't for this institution, I wouldn't have had over the last 22 years the opportunity to affect so many people's lives. We have to invest in our people. I grew up very, very poor. No one paid my way. I took out loans, I got grants, and I paid my way through college, and I appreciate the help that I received. So as far as a congressman, I would support efforts to help students get the funds they need to help themselves to become a more productive member of our society, but I would not do it for free. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
When I graduated from Berkeley about 35 years ago, I was paying roughly $1,000 a year in tuition. Today, it's $35,000. It works the same way with the Cal State system. We've shifted from the public paying for higher education to making the students pay for it. And that means those students are saddled with student debt that they may have difficulty ever paying off. So we need to do two things. First, we need to shift back to the way things used to be, spending more money on public education. And that's an investment because those people who have the education will earn more and pay more taxes. So that money will come back. Furthermore, we need to alleviate the problem of the existing student debt by a program of allowing students to either refinance at lower interest rates or forgive debt if they're contributing community service, military, etc. So we need to address both the core of the problem and the result of the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Tito.
You know, the student loan debt now is approximately $1.2 trillion. And so as a congressperson, fine, I can handle supporting Butte College and Chico State. However, there are certain programs that I may have an issue with. There are programs that are not necessarily going to lead to gainful employment. That's one thing. And so with that in mind, I would be hesitant to incur further debt in that government, again, does nothing to control the increase in cost. And one of the things that I would do, too, I would encourage vocational education so that people who are uncertain of what they want to do, so forth and so on, can go to a vocational school, get a job, have a skill, and use that to pay for their education.
Thank you. Mr. Montez.
I am one of those that paid my way through school, 16 years of undergrad and law school, and I think it's important to have skin in the game to realize and to really work hard for what it is that you're going to get out of the school. But in terms of funding for the colleges, I think that it should be tied to academic success of its students. I think it should be also tied to private fundraising, so maybe there's some form of matching, not equally. But I also think that there should be funding that's provided, additional funding that's provided on things like schools that are encouraging science and math. The hard sciences that we need. We're bringing people in from other countries to fill these jobs because we're not putting out enough people that do these things. But the technology-based should also merit more funding.
Thank you, Mr. Montez. Mr. Gerlach.
I'm not sure at the federal level how you would affect just two colleges that are in two systems that are statewide. So maybe I'll work at it from the entire state, what we could do from Congress. One of the failings I see in our education system right now is the federal regulations or the federal rule set that comes down with Common Core. I've been talking to professors all over the state and talking to them about the students that are coming in and how unprepared they are because of the curriculum in the lower schools. I think the broadband out here for the countryside, something that we either encourage private sector to build here or the government to bring in, and bringing those type of technologies to the communities and to the schools will make the colleges here stronger. Also, when there is funds coming in that then go to the state legislature, that then go to the population centers where the legislature votes for their constituents, I think from Congress we need to make sure when that money comes in that it gets directed to where the need is up here, where these schools are.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Rydell from Chico Enterprise Record has the final question.
All right. Can the federal government do anything to create jobs here in the North State? And if you were elected, what would you do?
We're starting with Mr. Gerlach.
There again, it's about the money that flows in from Washington. There's a number of different programs where I see money coming in. Housing and urban development is one with the homeless. Even the food stamps that they're voting to cut out of, or voting to diminish, make less. All of those dollars that come in aid, whether it's student aid or food aid or farm aid, all basically go directly into the community. There is no leaving once it's been brought here. It gets spent here. That money creates jobs. I think cutting that money out has to be balanced with some type of incentive from the private sector to bring business in.
Thank you. Mr. Oxley?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yes. Can the federal government do anything to help job creation in the North State, and what would you do?
Absolutely, the government can do something about that, and it has to do with our trade policies. If our trade policies promote our industries to go to Mexico or to Canada or to go overseas, then we're not going to get those jobs back. So we need to look at our trade. We need to look at our trade treaties, and we need to evaluate how they benefit and how they affect us. Because right now, NAFTA, as it was promoted to be such a great thing for us, it hasn't been, and this TPP that is now being painted as a wonderful opportunity for for jobs isn't there either. So I have a great deal of concern that our trade treaties need to be evaluated, and we need to see how they affect us here in the United States of America.
Thank you. Mr. Reed.
Well, first of all, thank you for asking that question. I planned on spending my final 2 minutes answering basically that question. You've just now increased it to 3 minutes. So since the 2008 Great Recession, much of California has made an amazing recovery. In fact, much of the nation has made an amazing recovery, but not our district. And the way that we're going to need to recover our jobs and our economy is by a major investment in infrastructure. Now, the problem is not just in our district, it's throughout the United States, and the Army Corps of Engineers has estimated that to fix our infrastructure and bring it up to where it should be would cost over $4 trillion. $4 trillion, that's the national debt's about $18 trillion, so it shows you how much money needs to be invested in infrastructure. And if we can convince the government to invest in that infrastructure, we'll make sure that we get our fair share. To be continued.
Thank you. Mr. Cheadle.
The main problem we have that would benefit the North State and the whole United States, period, is that we have got to decrease regulations and decrease taxes. Those are killing businesses. That's one thing. We have to enforce the anti-monopoly laws. We have to get back to Glass-Steagall. And even if we do get jobs, then we have to wrestle with the unions because that's often a factor with new businesses coming in or keeping businesses viable in the first place. We've got to get rid of those international trade agreements because they do nothing but screw us. As a government buy-in for the corporations, we're in trouble since depending on how you run the numbers, since 1993, 40 to 70,000 factories have left the United States due to globalism, deindustrialization. Mass incarceration is another issue because people are unemployed because they can't get a job because they have a record. And also technology is making jobs obsolete. So how in the world we can, as government, wrestle with all those things at once and wave a magic wand and have something done? Impossible.
Thank you, Mr. Cheadle. Mr. Montez.
I think that your congressman, first and foremost, needs to be very active in bringing employers and their jobs here. With the power of Congress, you can open many doors. Now, I'm the only one on this panel that has brought many, many jobs to this community. My hope is by the end of this year, maybe close to 200. So this is substantial, and it's a model that can actually be worked throughout the entire North State. And I think that with the power of Congress and going out and courting people to come here is very important. Of course, I want to lower taxes. When we have more money in our pockets, we spend it, and that creates a workforce and it creates demand. I also agree with Mr. Cheadle that we should be deregulating as much as possible. So with that combination of things and balancing our trade, by balancing our trade, we would produce 5 to 6 million new jobs in this country, and we need to focus on that quickly.
Thank you. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. They chose numbers to pick who would go first, second, third, fourth, fifth. It's going to look very familiar. We're starting with Mr. Oxley.
First, thank you for having us here this evening. Thank you for attending, and thank you, gentlemen, as well. There are 4 levels of government that we have. We have our state and county level. We have our city and county level. We have our state level. We have our national level, and we have international influence in our government. We are a global world, and I want it to be known very clearly that I am not an anti-globalist, as the record Searchlight painted me to be. I will work with other nations, but not at the expense of our Constitution or our national sovereignty. We are $20 trillion in debt. I don't know how we're going to get out of that. I don't think anyone really knows how we're going to get out of that. We have to start looking at where are we going to appropriate money so that that debt starts to come down. One of my biggest concerns is that as Americans, most of us do not understand that we pay a financial quota to the UN, to the Organization of American States, and the International Monetary Fund, quotas that they set for us, and then we're obligated to pay those based on treaties that we've signed off on. So when we're looking at how do we fix our problems here with healthcare, with education, with jobs, we have to look at where we're putting our money. We're building a global society, and we're sacrificing our own people in the process. As your representative in Congress, you need to know that my first priority is to preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution. The second priority is to help you do the same. Supreme Court Justice Joseph Story stated that if the Constitution may peril in a moment, if it were not for its keepers, the people. It's up to you, ladies and gentlemen, to preserve and protect that Constitution, and I will help you do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oxley. Mr. Reed?
So continuing on with my discussion of how infrastructure will improve the economy and bring jobs to the district, first of all, understand what fixing and improving infrastructure is. That means improving roads. It's a crime that's not a freeway between Chico and Red Bluff on 99. Improving roads, bridges, airports, bringing high-speed internet to much of the district where it's lacking, fixing our levees. Now, how does that improve the economy, and how does that create jobs? First, it creates jobs when the construction is done, and just the construction alone brings jobs. But once an example of high-speed internet, that is the one thing that prevents companies from prospering in our area. We can't compete with companies in San Francisco and the Silicon Valley because we don't have high-speed internet, and companies can't compete with the amount of data that needs to be transported these days. Both Republicans and Democrats understand that we need to fund infrastructure repair. The question is, where does that come from? Let me tell you, the biggest item of our budget is defense. More than half of our budget is defense. And we can tap into the defense budget by changing the way the military operates. It used to be self-sufficient. Now it uses independent contractors. The run-up to the Iraq War was the big shift. It costs about 10 times more for independent contractors to cook for our soldiers. Our soldiers used to cook for themselves, fix their vehicles, fix the airplanes. Our veterans don't even come out with skills anymore. But the fact is, we can save a whole lot of money by going back to the old system, and that money should then be used to work on our infrastructure. And I will guarantee in Washington that I will make sure our district gets its fair share of that infrastructure money that's being used for repairs and improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Cheadle.
You know, first of all, I'm an 1856 Republican, and I would hope that those of you who don't know what an 1856 Republican is will study that. I care for the people. That's demonstrated in my 15 years of volunteer service in the ER at Mercy Medical Center in Reading. I've also been a volunteer serving food at the tourist shelter here in Chico, and also at the Good News Rescue Mission in Reading. So I practice what I preach. But beyond all that, I'm more of an activist. I'm fed up with the way things are going. I'm fed up with taxes. A fire tax was imposed on us. I refuse to pay it. To this day, I refuse to pay it. And that's what we as people have to do. Government has become too big and too powerful, and there's nothing in sight but it becoming bigger and more powerful if we allow it to take control over us. We must begin to stop letting government take control over us the way it is. So the power is in the people. My money does not go into the major banks. It goes into a local bank. I don't shop in these large corporate places. I shop locally. Another problem that we have in this country, too, is mass incarceration. Mass incarceration, again, has led to us having over 70 million people in the population with a criminal record. Therefore, they're not eligible for a lot of jobs which provide gainful employment. In addition, there's an increase in crime because they can't find a job. There's an increase in unemployment because they can't get a job. I, for one, will work as a person in Congress to get government back into the hands of we, the people.
Thank you. Mr. Gerlach.
I've spent the last 20 years doing internet technologies, creating solutions in a highly complicated, fast-moving, innovative, solutions-driven environment. I believe that if I were given the chance to go to Congress and only had to represent the people of this district and didn't have to join the feud of the party system that currently leaves us in gridlock, I think I had a pretty good chance of making change happen, bringing about some solutions to the country and solutions for our district. I really just want to remind you all that no party preference now is a choice, and I hope I represent the first of many that will come behind me that don't want to participate any longer in the two-party system.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Montez.
Thank you. I am a 2017 Republican because I intend to win, and I intend to usher in a new era of republicanism, which I think is a spirit throughout this entire country. It's one in which we realize anymore that we must reach across the aisle. We can no longer afford to alienate each other. It's so bad, folks. It's not just between Republicans and Democrats, but it's within the Republican Party and within the Democrat Party. We cannot afford, with the massive, large-scale problems that are so costly, to eliminate half of the financial resources, half of the intellectual resources in solving these problems. I remember, I'm 60 years old, and I remember Kennedy. There used to be a lot of respect for the office of presidency. We are marching under banners now where We believe that we're not supposed to listen to anybody else. We need to be talking with each other, and if we can find the common ground in each other, things like we all want a more responsible and a more responsive government than the one we have, left and right. We all want a more vibrant economy than the one we have now. We all want to be safe in our streets and in our homes. If we just engage in the dialogue with each other, we will find that even if we come at these problems from different directions, at least we're talking about the same thing. I will say that if you're satisfied with the way things are, vote for Doug LaMalfa. But if you want real change, this time vote for a Republican in a red district that can make a difference and will work with both left and right. I have a history of that. I have a lot of experience with that, and I just can't wait to do it again on a bigger level. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Before we close officially, I need to do a little self-promotion for the League of Women Voters of the state of California. They have a website that they offer. It used to be known as Smart Voter. We've now partnered with another company called MapLight, and we now offer a product called votersedge.org. Voters Edge is all one word. And most of the candidates here tonight have already posted their candidacy on Voters Edge. We offer every candidate running in every election in the state of California an opportunity to have a web page at no cost to them. So I encourage all of you, if you want to know more about the candidate, they post information there. They have links to their own websites. And for the offices of President, Senate, probably Congress, Voters Edge is posting the campaign contributions that are being made to these candidates. So that's also an interesting piece of information. I'd also like to thank all of our helpers from the League tonight, from the greeters, the question takers, the question screeners, our president, Margaret Swick, and Rose Kelly, who helped put all this together, and my co-moderator, Nicole LaGrave. And with that, I'd like to thank Mr. Cheadle, Mr. Gerlach, Mr. Montez, Mr. Oxley, and Mr. Reed for coming tonight. I think we gave you some very tough questions from both the audience and the press, and you were all great and very responsive to our timers. So if everybody would like to now, give them a round of applause. This is the time. Thank you. It's over.
Them tonight, and I'll share them with you in the
The
afterwards.
candidates, can I have a mic too? The candidates may be out in the lobby, in the entryway. If some of you would like to talk with them, we can talk with you out there, and I think some of them might have some of their campaign leaders out there as well. There's also information from the League of Women Voters. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.